Welcome to episode 1 of Love the Human, Hate the Behavior on Clearing the Fog podcast. I'm Melanie Schaefer-Meyer and a 2-time certified life coach through the Life Coach School and Tony Robbins. And today we are diving into the subject of gaslighting and the circular conversation. So this episode is all about how do we handle this behavior? Why does it show up? And what do we do about it? So first, I want to start off by defining what is gaslighting. This is very important. So let's look at this definition I pulled up on Google, and it gives an AI overview. Gaslighting is a type of psychological abuse or manipulation that involves someone deliberately lying to another person in order to make them question their own reality, memories, or sanity. The goal of gaslighting is to gain power and control over the victim by making them doubt their judgment and intuition. In this piece, I wanted to just stop on really quickly and talk about the power and control. So I don't really love that this is used because my brain really wants to focus on why, like what is power and control? What does that look like? And it's hard to really see for me that there's a power dynamic going on. But especially, so people that usually display gaslighting behaviors are of narcissistic personality disorder. And again, like I explained in the pilot, we want to remove the label of narcissism. We want to remove the tendency or feel the need to diagnose or be a diagnostician. We're not psychologists. The layman or ordinary individual does not have the training to diagnose a human. The best we can do really is to look at patterns of behavior over time in associating with this person and see, okay, what tends to come up? So that's what we're looking at today, really is just the behavior of gaslighting. But if it is somebody who is gaslighting, the tendency and the underlying cause of gaslighting is a need to protect the fragile ego. The ego seems to be very underdeveloped in this person. And so in the fragile ego, what they're really trying to do is protect. And what I've noticed is when this person is trying to protect the ego, they want to stay big. If I am big and I keep you small, then my ego is protected and I feel safe and the same, and there's nothing wrong with me. That seems to be the underlying current of the gaslighting behavior. I am fine. There's nothing wrong with me. So when we're looking at power and control, they really are trying to keep that fragile ego very safe. So any other human would want to grow the self, understand their loved ones. And that doesn't seem to be the tactic of somebody who has a tendency for gaslighting. Some effects of gaslighting include confusing. The victims may feel confused or anxious. They develop loss of confidence, self-doubt, eroded self-respect. So those are the damaging effects. And one of the reasons why we need to really address gaslighting when it happens so that we can protect our own ego, but also not necessarily destroy theirs. So some of the other key aspects that occur inside of gaslighting: denial. They'll say, that never happened. Blame shifting is a really big one. It's all your fault. You did this. You started this. Minimizing. You're overreacting. It's not that big of a deal. Withholding. This is another big phrase. I don't know what you're talking about. Countering. Remembering you never remember things correctly. This one's really, they'll also say, you must have remembered wrong. Discrediting. Everyone thinks you are crazy. And again, this is a key phrase that you need to keep in mind. But whenever they say, you never, you always, those absolute phrases are really poignant key words that will be used during a gaslighting event. Deflection. What about that time you did this? If we can keep the attention on you and what you did and what you tend to do and what you did yesterday and 2 weeks ago, they'll bring that up so that we can keep the attention off of them and their fragile ego. Again, this protects their fragile ego. Using loving words as weapons. I would never hurt you on purpose. And then rewriting history. You yelled at me for no reason. So again, it's kind of a minimizing thing to say, there's no real reason for you to be upset. And so again, they'll use things like, you're crazy, look at you. And the more that the gaslighting phrases come up, the more that you start to get frustrated and you really want them to acknowledge the thing that happened. But two things are going on. In this moment, we've reached a point where they're not going to acknowledge it, and gaslighting has started to be present in the situation. So, what is really important? How do we handle when this is happening? So first off, notice when those phrases start to come up, all of the gaslighting phrases. And notice what they're actually trying to do, protect the ego. Also, notice inside of yourself what your goal is in bringing it up in the first place. If you were speaking to a healthy human that did not have the tendency for gaslighting, and I think this is our own empathetic direction, that we're hoping that we're looking at an empathetic individual, that if we brought something up and they knew that the thing was bad that they did, or that it hurt us, if they understood that we were hurt, then they wouldn't do it again. So really the goal is acknowledge what you did so that you feel bad for me. And if you feel bad for me, then you won't do it again. So those three things are actually really problematic, even for a healthy individual. So understand that that's your goal when you approach the subject. So really, what they really want to do is take the heat off of them. Let's remove the heat from their fragile ego. And then just go back to I statements. I feel hurt. I'm feeling frustrated. I'm feeling alone. You can also do things that will protect their ego and make sure that they feel loved. I love you, and I know that you wouldn't intentionally do this, and acknowledge a few things that you know that they're doing right, and that you want to make sure that you understand that you're not trying to destroy them in any way. You really are saying that this thing hurts me when this happens, and right now I'm feeling hurt. My goal is not to make you look bad, and my goal is not to make you seem like the bad guy. I want you to know that you are loved. It really is that this thing is hurting me, and I would like it to stop. I understand that that might be hard for you, but I just want you to be aware that this is difficult for me. So that's really hard to do, but that's a conversation that you can have when you start to notice the deflection, because you really want to stop. What will happen is you'll start to get more frustrated. You'll start to keep trying to drill down on all of the granular differences between what happened and what they are trying to dismiss, minimize, deflect, blame shift. And the more you try to bring up what happened and what you saw happened, the more that they'll just keep spinning this circle. So it'll be deflect, and then you'll try and convince. Blame shift, you'll try and convince. And it will just go round and round and round without much progress. The only person that's going to stop that is you. And so you can do that by acknowledging what they're actually doing, protecting the ego, and then understand what your goal is. And that is to not feel hurt now or in the future, because that usually is the reason why we bring things up. I'm hurting now, and I also don't want to hurt in the future. So if I tell you, then hopefully we can work on this. So that's another point that I also want to talk about is the need for even healthy humans who don't have gaslighting tendencies or behaviors to have differences in perspective on any given situation. You're entering a situation and they're going to have a different vantage point. They're going to have a different history and the different lenses of perception for interpreting the world around them. So even by the words that you describe what happened may be different from how they viewed it and how they understood the situation. If it really, really must be dissected, which I would caution you not to do, but if it really must, you can even do this on your own later for your own processing. Really state the facts. Person walked across the room. Person sat down. Weather was X degrees. It was 80 degrees. Whatever the provable facts are, those are the things that you can call what happened. Be very careful of your interpretation of what happened. An example of this happened between two of my children. We were on the playground, and underneath the playground equipment was a series of wood chips, and they were all playing. At one point, one of the children picked up a wood chip and threw it across the playground, and it hit his baby sister in the head, and she started to cry. And I said to my son, "You hit your sister in the head with a wood chip." And he said, "No, I didn't." And I said, "Yes, you did. I just saw it happen." And he said, "No, I didn't." And at that point, I realized what we were going to have to do was granularly describe what just happened. Okay, son, you picked up a wood chip. You threw it across the playground. The wood chip hit your sister in the head, and now she's crying. So by that point, he didn't really have a defense because those specific incidences were true. But my goal was, say sorry, feel bad about it, don't do it again. Right? And if you need time to think about it, then maybe let's go to timeout. And you can't play on the playground until we've resolved this and I've consoled the sister. So, and this is really difficult to do as a parent, because when you get in these sort of tussles with an individual who wants to protect the ego and that wants to deny and deflect and minimize and blame shift to protect themselves, we forget to love the individual, and we also forget to love the person who's crying, because we're just in a tussle with the person in front of us. So if the gaslighting behavior is in a child, it's different than when it's an adult, but it's still a similar situation, because the child that's hurt in an adult situation is you, and maybe your inner child, and maybe your wounded self. So we still need to help and protect the fragile ego that's in front of us. Calm and soothe the child or the wounded self, whoever that is, and make sure that the individuals feel loved at the end of it. And that's how I would like to start any altercation or any confrontation, is if you notice this tendency to gaslight, protect, have power and control, it will take a few instances to notice, okay, this person constantly gaslights if I bring up something that happened. So when you're in the moment, it takes some effort to be the one to exit the circular conversation, to stop it. And you do that by expressing that you love somebody. You're not intending to break them down. You don't want them to be the bad person. You just want them to know that this is hurting you. But if you notice that this tendency is present quite often, what you want to do is start the conversation with that in mind. Hey, I'm feeling hurt. I'm feeling frustrated. Do you have a moment for me to tell you why? And then when you tell them why, tell them, I'm going to tell you something that might be hard to hear. I want you to know that I love you, and I know that you're not a bad person. This thing happened, and I can tell you that it's happened this time and another time. You can watch to see if it's happening more than once. Really slow down your response time and try not to be super reactive when things are happening so that you can gather adequate data. Say, this thing happened and it's hurting me. I would like it not to happen again. Can you please work on it? And then that way, you can also acknowledge that it's hard to work on things, and that even you could even bring up some of these gaslighting phrases that they will want to use. It may not seem like a big deal to you. And I might have behaviors like this also. And I acknowledge that it's painful and hurtful. But it's not changing the fact that this thing is hurtful to me. So turning those phrases on them is also a really great tactic. Just saying the phrase, that may be true. There's a chance that you're right. And there's a chance that I might need to work on this. I might be acting crazy. But the reason is because I'm hurt. And I would like it not to happen again. I do know that there's reason for me to work on myself so that I'm not reacting in a certain way, so that maybe I'm even stronger to handle it when you are acting that way also. But here we are, and this is the situation, and it's hurtful, and I would like it to stop. And just make sure that they know that you still love them, that you don't see them as bad, and that their perspective is valid, that it might not be a big deal to them, but it's still a big deal to you right now. And in the vast scheme of things, of big deals, this might not be the biggest one, but it's significant enough that we want to talk about it. So, I think that's really important to acknowledge what the thing is, the reasons why you want to bring up the thing, the tendencies or behaviors in your loved one to deflect and dismiss and minimize and blame shift, so that you're protecting them. And this is really important. You're not going to be perfect at it the first time you do it. But I think noticing will be an important first step. Interesting. They're deflecting. They're blame shifting. Even just to say it in your mind. That's blame shifting. they're deflecting, they're minimizing. Just say that in your mind. And even that's like, it allows those light bulbs to go off in your head. They might be protecting themselves. So maybe I need to put my weapons down a little bit, soften my approach so that they don't have their shields up so strongly. And then my last piece of advice really is, this is really hard to do the first time you do it. And it's hard the more skilled that you are. It doesn't change that it's difficult, but your ability to navigate it does increase in ease the more that you do it. I would invite you to call upon your higher power in those moments, whatever that is for you. For me, I've always relied on my Father in heaven and Jesus Christ. I will always invite you to call upon the love of Jesus Christ that he has for all human beings. I love that so much because he invites all men to love one another. And that's really where this is coming from. I don't love that narcissism and gaslighting are just the new flavors of hate. That we really need to peel off these labels so that we can still love each other, even if we don't behave very well, even if we're underdeveloped, even in ourselves, even in them, even if they never seem to get it themselves, strong ways to handle other human behavior. But whatever it is for you, whether it is calling on the universe or the Great Spirit, whatever, I invite you to call on your highest self and the love that is within you that you can apply not only to yourself to soothe and console, but also to the person in front of you that you are trying to tell them that they are hurting you and that you're not trying to villainize them in any way. You're just trying to have a great existence and include them in it. Because really, the reason why that we bring it up to them is because they're in our life. We want to keep them there. We see that we have future instances with this person, and we want those instances to be good. So make sure that they know that they're loved and that we want to continue with them in love. So the outside of this, outside of gaslighting, outside of a gaslighting and circular experience, what if it goes awry? What if it doesn't go very well? What if they've said things that you allowed to get in? You're crazy. Nobody likes you. Everybody thinks that I'm right. And it's not that big of a deal. You're overreacting. What if we allow those things to actually get inside? So this next piece is really important for soothing the mind and making sure that you are healed and whole and that you are soothing yourself because the other person doesn't have the qualifications or capabilities of doing that for you or helping you with that or guiding you through that. You may need to do that on your own or with my help. So I'm so glad that you're here. So this part is where we look at what actually happened. There's two things that happened. The thing that we were trying to talk about, the thing that we brought up that hurt us in the beginning. So it's really important for you to journal about that, or at least to spend some time thinking about what actually happened. Why is that painful for me? Why was that important? What did I make that thing mean? Because a lot of times the things that happen are not the same thing as we make them mean. So maybe just look at that. But then also, when we face any sort of grinding. It's like micro rejections inside of a relationship. It's not a major rejection where somebody's like, I don't like you, I don't want to include you, whatever that is. It's like you're in relationship with somebody, but there's micro rejections. Like, I don't like you, I did this, or whatever happened. When you have a rejection experience inside of the brain, it is occurring in the same part of the brain that physical pain is existing. So for dealing with that pain inside the brain, you can't apply a Band-Aid. You can't apply a salve. There's no blood. There's no Band-Aid that will really do that other than self-affirmation. So what I want you to do, if you're done journaling about what happened, getting it all out, getting the specifics of actually what happened, and then actually what you thought about it, what you made it mean, why it was important to you, then we want to move to writing about the things that we know and love about ourselves and we know to be true. This is really important because there's that piece of gaslighting where it destroys your own ego. It destroys your self-confidence, your self-worth, your ability to trust yourself and your own intuition. So what you want to do after an episode of gaslighting is write down 5 to 10 at least sentences that you know to be true about yourself. Write them down, see them, reread them, and then once you know what you see in front of you, then write out sentences, 3 to 5 sentences per item of why you know those things to be true and good about you. So this element helps you to keep your memory, your intuition, your ability to have your own self-perception. We don't want to erode our own ego. So that helps that to not be eroded by a gaslighting episode. So do the affirmation piece so that you can self-soothe, but also reinforce and fortify and apply love to yourself. I love me because I am good, because I am amazing, because whatever that is, write those out and be detailed about it. And that will help you to feel like you successfully navigated the situation and that you can handle it going forward. And it starts to develop that confidence in yourself that you're also a decent human being, you haven't been cut down, and that you still have amazing things to offer, and your perspective is important and valid and valuable. So that is our episode on gaslighting. I really hope that helps you navigate a gaslighting episode in the future, helps you to identify when gaslighting is present or if there's gaslighting tendencies, so that you can really navigate that for the individual that you choose to keep in your life. If this is something that you're still able to handle and that you choose to keep this person in your life so that your interactions with them have less edge. I hope that is helpful for you. All right, my friends,